Welcome to Dr. Stone Weekly, week 3 of Dr. Stone, the show where they make mortar from clamshells and alcohol or nitric acid from grapes. Last week we saw them go out of their way not to rescue Taiju's crush, but instead free this bulked up bro dude who then proceeded to tell everyone that he was going to kill every adult in the world and only free the pure youth. So that was obviously a great decision. And this week, probably we're going to see the conflict between Senku and the strongest primate high schooler in the world. A phrase you could probably only hear in anime. So without further ado, let's get started. And again, Taiju's just stabbing people in the back. It's already because he got chased by these lions that they have to revive Tsukasa in the first place, who's now just dressed like Hercules. Not only does he do that, he also tells him that there's this magic fluid that can revive people. That being said, I am glad that they're just jumping into the plot and not like waiting for some contrived reason for him to find the pot fluid. Cave fluid. I'm just going to call it nitric acid because that's what it is. So Taiju, just being a total aho, just tells him about it right off the bat, so we can skip all the like faffing around and go straight to the conflict. So for that, I thank you, Taiju. I said last week that Burnout Syndromes did the opening, but this is probably one of their worst openings ever. I'm a big fan of them because they did both of the openings for both seasons of Haikyuu, and I legit have both of those songs on my phone, and I play it when I need to get hyped up, but this song is just not it for me. Maybe if there's a second season we get a better song than this, but this song just didn't do it for me. I didn't really get the thematic connection with it, although the OP animation was good, and it did show us some characters that we haven't met yet, which is always good. But we haven't, like, this song is just bad. The song selection. The OP itself is fine, though. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so we've given Senku a lot of credit for his chemistry genius and just being him able to make like all these like weird things that helps them. They made mortar in the last episode. He's basically been able to construct like a few tools and such things, but this dude catches on really fast. Is the point that he's like very tactically good at picking up things and like contextually just knows what's happening? Because remember, he was revived after like more than 3,000 years. And he just snapped into action and punched a lion like 4 seconds later without any hesitation or asking for any explanation. Like, if you wake up a normal person and be like, hey, fight these lions for me real quick, chances are they're not going to do that. But this guy seems more than prepared to, take that challenge on. He has to be like smart to some degree to face off against Senku. He doesn't necessarily need to know like technology or like chemistry and stuff like that, but he does need to be able to pick up on stuff that Senku's doing in the first place to have a chance to stand up against him. And I feel like this episode we've got to see that a lot. He basically figured out that Senku was trying to not tell him where the stuff is, and then he went to the cave in place of Taiju, but he got tricked because Senku's smarter than he is. But he makes up for it obviously by having brute strength and a pretty objectivist ideology. That being said, if they do bring back Yuzuriha and they don't have enough acid, they're probably going to have to wait a few days till he can revive someone else. Does he have friends that he wants to revive? Who does he want to bring back exactly? I'd be curious to know that. Holy fuck, he found out. Yeah, okay, so this is something that I had problems with Kimetsu no Yaiba about, but people seem to think that it was really good that it was doing that, and that was that it skips some of like the shonen like hang-ups and goes straight to the action every time. I feel like the actual like characteristic points of shonen have meaning and that you have to spend more time on them, especially if it's more of a standard shonen than like an unconventional, more like thinking off shonen like Promised Neverland or this. But where I had problems with that show, that it skipped some of the like more setup-y stuff and like the character investment type stuff that we get by having like a training arc or something like that that's more than a few episodes, With this show, I really like that they're skipping right to the action because the characters are already established in what they do. So we have Tsukasa, who's this like primate anarchist type guy. We have Senku, who's like this chemical genius type guy, and Taiju, who's like his willing accomplice. And they've been that way since, the first second of the show. So we really don't need them for them to have any character development in order to face off. So all this setup is just time spent getting to know the characters before we jump straight into the battles. Keep in mind, we're only on episode 3, and we've already been introduced to the premise of the show. We've already had one episode with just the 2 characters that are going to be our good guys for the rest of the show. And then immediately after that, we get introduced to the villain, and we get introduced to his philosophy. And then the next episode, we're basically already jumping straight into the battle. Oh, and we also had a main girl introduced into this in 3 episodes' time. So in 3 episodes, we've got 4 characters, a high school setting, and then a new setting, establishing what they need to do, setting up the rival, and then starting up the battle in 3 episodes. I don't know how many chapters of manga that took to adapt, but I'm guessing it's not that many. I'm also not aware of how many chapters of Dr. Stone are out right now, but I'm going to guess it's in the hundreds of chapters, based on how many chapters they waited for Promised Neverland to have before they made the anime of that, and they're almost equally popular manga in Japan. I'd say the appeal of them is actually pretty similar, given that they're both like these kind of intellectually like outthinking each other type shows, which is the last time we saw that was like Death Note probably. When was the last time we saw something like that? I can't even remember. That being said, Tsukasa is the most scary guy in this show. He goes around punching stone statues and crumbling them into dust. If that doesn't scare you, I don't know what will. The more I watch the show, the more I get convinced this is like the bro science version of the New World Order. I had a discussion with one of the people I discuss anime with, and they were like, oh, this is really cool that they're facing science off against like this primitive man type thing. And I was like, for sure, Tsukasa should have superpowers, because at first he would be overpowered, but when they start getting into like the later science advancements, he's not going to stand a chance. He just caught an arrow and then redirected it into the ground, and then like hit Taiju so hard his hand is smoking. Is this guy secretly like a Titan from Attack on Titan or something? It is cool that they're obviously exaggerating his abilities, because it just makes it that much better when they eventually do defeat him. Although I have no idea how they're going to get away from him in the first place, unless they have some kind of like ceasefire, we don't really try to kill each other, I like you, I just don't like what you stand for type thing, like we see with Charles Xavier and Magneto in the X-Men comics and movies. That would be more interesting to me if they do their things separately and only clash when he tries to do something that they don't like, which is like killing people. Why not just leave them as statues? Why even? He seems, there's some like, we've already seen the pain in his past, but it's like so basic and simple that there has to be something more. If the only reason you're going around smashing statues of adults that are actually people is because you didn't get to make a seashell necklace for your sick sister that one time, ooh boy. Maybe that's the point. Maybe Tsukasa's like supposed to be a warning about like the dangers of black and white thinking. Like you shouldn't. He just assumed that one adult was bad, so all adults are bad. They have no redeeming qualities or whatever. And that's like his Faustian flaw, his fatal flaw that'll eventually lead to his defeat, is that he believes all adults are dumb or whatever. Like once he has one idea, that's it for him. That being said, he does seem pretty smart. So let's see how far this black and white thinking gets him before he eventually is defeated. Or at least if they can, hurt him a little bit maybe, because he just shot an arrow at him and it did nothing. So yeah, 1 Tsukasa 1, Senku and Taiju 0. He said the cherry trees aren't self-pollinating, which means they need to be pollinated by, like bees or bats or whatever, and those are all stone now. Except some animals aren't stone. Maybe they turned into stone at a later date than the humans. But then they are hunting and eating some animals? Were those animals the descendants of the other animals from before? Okay, these are like questions that don't really matter. Okay, back to the show. It's a pretty cool moment. They found a landmark of a Buddha statue in the middle of a forest to know where they are. I'm hoping Senku pulls out some cool latitude and longitudes type stuff to know exactly where he's at. This is the science that I asked for earlier. Yuzuriha's character also seems to be getting more defined in this episode. We don't really know much about her other than that she goes to the same school as they did and that Taiju likes her, but it seems like she also is processing some emotions from having like the whole world turn into stone or whatever. It seems to me like only kids in high school be like, let's not revive our families right away. Let's just, be by ourselves for a little bit. Because I feel like if it was like a slightly older crowd, they'll be like, let's get as many people out as we can possibly, manage. And let's get another way to beat people, who are really strong is by having lots of numbers against them. Granted, this is an anime, so that probably won't be the most effective strategy because he seems to be like some kind of Ubermensch Superman type. But in a more normal setting, that would be a good strategy. Good to see that Yuzuriha is getting some character development because for the first 5 minutes of this episode, she was just standing on the sidelines while Taiju and Tsukasa were going at it without even saying anything. So yeah, that's good to see. So that's what those are. Those are cracks in their face that are still lingering from them being stone. Okay. Because I was thinking, I thought it was just like to remind you that it's Dr. Stone or whatever. But I mean, I don't know if that serves any plot purpose. It just makes the characters look cooler when you have scars, I guess. And if the scars are, formed from some kind of in-world logic, that's obviously better than just randomly giving people scars. She doesn't have a scar on her face. She has a scar on her arm. That's fine, whatever. It's anime after all. I like that instead of when they found this Bronze Age Buddha statue, instead of being like, oh, we can make better weapons or whatever, he's like, let me upgrade my sextant. That's pure Senku right there. No one else would ever say that, of course. So it's interesting to note that even though his crossbow arrow was completely stopped, right? So a lot of the development that happened in like the early age, like going from stone tools to bronze tools to iron tools, none of that is going to be effective against Tsukasa because you're just changing the arrowhead on the arrow. It's not making it go any faster or anything. They just have to get to guns as fast as possible, but it's obviously insanely hard to get to guns because to make guns you need to like cast metal into certain shapes and be able to make bullets and obviously gunpowder. Knowing this ahead of time would probably make it easier to make that. I think they could make gunpowder before they make any of those other things. And to cast metal, you need like a super, super hot fire of some kind, which is hard to do if you don't already have a furnace of some kind, which you need to make out of something probably stone, which is obviously, again, hard to do. I'll be interested to see what kind of weapon they choose to make, because I think that will tell us a lot about how they plan to stop Tsukasa in the coming episodes. And also, what is he up to? Like, if we're going to have a rival or a, antagonist that's so fundamentally like philosophically opposed to them, I want to see him like do stuff all the time. Like I want to see him have monologues about how he's made a cabin in the woods or whatever, but they're treating him basically exclusively as a villain, and I feel like there's more depth to the character than that. There may not be, because his whole motivation for killing adults is that he didn't get to make a seashell necklace that one time, so he might just be operating off of pure like primeval instinct at this point. But it would be nice if he had depth. That being said, let's see what they make. And of course, as soon as I say that, they have a, couple minutes with Tsukasa. Okay, show. Are you reading my mind out here? Okay. Oh shit, called it. Okay, gunpowder. Yeah, gunpowder is just a chemical mixture, so it's way easier to make than anything that could actually fire a bullet. Are they going to fire a cannon? Are they going to put rocks in a barrel and then like put gunpowder in it and try to hit him with that? It would certainly have more force than what they shot him with the arrow. Whether it's going to hit him or not, if you watch Kung Fu Panda, you should know by now how this turns out. It doesn't end well for the people shooting the cannons, I'll tell you that much. Pretty cool that, every episode we do get some kind of chemical, like, cool idea or whatever. He's going to make guns or something resembling a gun at an onsen. Let's learn about chemistry, boys and girls. So that was Dr. Stone episode 3. I don't know if the pacing has changed all that much from the first 2 episodes, but it certainly feels like we're heading in a different direction this episode, because finally, after the end of last episode, we set up this confrontation between Tsukasa and our 2 main boys, and we seem to be moving in a certain like confrontational path. Like there's no way that they don't fight each other in the coming episodes. Tsukasa is like extremely quick on the uptake. That's what we learned this episode. We only met him last episode, so we haven't really gotten that much time to understand what he, is capable of. But this episode, he was able to catch on in like just like a flash, and just able to discern exactly what they're going to do before they actually even do it, or like before the consequences of their actions come to bear against him. But he was able to immediately detect that, oh yeah, there is fluid in the cave, and like he's going to revive somebody or whatever. And he found out the secret of how to revive people, which is obviously instrumental to his plan of like raising up a society of youthful, pure young people. And he also was able to detect that the whole commotion that Senku caused in their hut before he took off, that was all just a construction to make him think that they ran away, when actually they didn't run away. They made a tactical retreat to this place called Hakone, where they're able to find all this like sulfur in a volcanic hot spring, with which they're going to make black powder, or the thing that they made before, gunpowder, to try to stop him. What he called a 1.9 million year warp from the Stone Age straight to gunpowder. That's a heck of a warp, and obviously something that makes really like real sense in world, because it doesn't really take that much chemistry knowledge to make gunpowder. Like you don't need a whole set of like things that existed before that in order to craft it. You just have to mix a couple ingredients. What I'm most curious about is how he's actually going to use it against Tsukasa, because you need some kind of like projectile to fire with gunpowder, and he just showed that he can stop an arrow firing at 200 kilometers per hour. This is giving me strong Kung Fu Panda vibes, but of course we're on the opposite side of the Kung Fu Panda thing. It would be like if Kung Fu Panda turned evil and started like killing all the people in the valley, and then the other side had to come up with gunpowder to stop him. That's effectively, this entire show is just like reverse Kung Fu Panda. That being said, the show itself is like continuing at a steady pace. Now, shonen, it like they like to, or this kind of fast-paced show, they'd like to put twists at the end of the episode. So last episode we had the twist being they're gonna fight, which should have been a pretty obvious twist, but the way that they set it up made it a pretty satisfactory conclusion to the episode. And this episode we have the twist that, oh, it's gunpowder that we're gonna make. Gunpowder, obviously a pretty cool invention. Every episode we're getting some kind of chemical fact, and the whole fulcrum of the episode depends on what kind of technology or science Senku is going to invent that episode, which is just a great way to set up how the plot moves, because it gives us something to look forward to every episode. And if you're a science geek like me, this is just tickling you all over to see like science being used in such a real world aspect, or like in an effective way, or as something we've come to kind of take for granted in the modern world as science. As Taiju keeps mentioning again and again, there's no way they make smartphones anytime soon. Like the amount of stuff that they need to do to make something like that is just insane. But just having simple knowledge about something like gunpowder allows them to like take such a huge leap in their ability to defend themselves against somebody like Tsukasa, who can, stop a moving arrow that's moving at 200 kilometers per hour, according to Senku. Okay, so that was a fun episode. Dr. Stone is like moving along at a good pace. Probably one of my favorite shows of the season. The only problem I have with it, is that the main character Senku is just not endearing at all to me. Like he has this like fake cocky attitude, and his catchphrase is so annoying. He says 10 billion% or 10 billion times a chance, like at least 10 or 15 times every episode. And if you like the catchphrase, I guess you have fun when he says that. But for me, when he says that, it's just like borderline annoying. Or it is annoying actually. I can, put up with all that because he comes up with good science stuff, but like he hasn't really said anything about himself yet. We know about Taiju, we know about Tsukasa, we know about Yuzuriha. We know nothing about him. He's just like a brain that exists to make cool tools for them to use. I want to know more about him. I don't know if they're going to tell us, or if like one of his inventions has to fail or something like that for us to find out more about who he is as a person. But I feel like until we know more about him as a person, I don't think, like the whole character-driven point of the show is just going to continue. Because the show's crux right now is like these science gimmicks that they have. But if they want to keep moving forward, eventually we're going to have to learn more about the characters and get to know them. so that we're invested in their success or failure. And I don't really feel I'm invested in Senku's personal success or failure. I would much rather have Tsukasa take over the world, even though his philosophy is completely wrong, just because I know more about him. I know where he's coming from. I don't really know where Senku's coming from. I just know that he's a science boy who likes mechs and space. That's all I know. That's not really enough to go off of. Okay, this episode is getting way too long. So that being said, that's it for this week of Dr. Stone. Stay tuned for next week, where eventually we're going to see, two high schoolers fight basically Superman with gunpowder. That's it for this week. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next episode.